How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty cool. A little tired, but cool overall.
That's good.
How was your day? Hi, Shannon.
Tracy and Shannon, Nicole.
Hey, Tracy.
It was good.
Okay. You know, sometimes when I do this thing, right? I guess
Uh-huh.
because I watch other live so often, I get this temptation to press the heart in the corner, and I realize it's not there. Can't press it. Hey, Shannon, how are you? Hi, everyone. How are y'all doing tonight? Let's see. Right, we should get started soon. I don't want to delay too much. Well, tonight we're interviewing Krystle. Um, and what I really wanted to get into, because the last time we spoke a lot about her business, Krystle Clearing, and what she does in that business, I want to shift the focus at least for a little bit to talk a bit about Krystle Creations and then, ease back into some of the things that we would have been discussing last time. Like, I was actually looking at some of the your paintings recently.
Yeah.
Girl, I love them, girl.
I'd be all over the place with my art.
I like, I love them, especially ones with the black women. I love them. They're gorgeous.
Thank you so much.
All right, you ready to get started?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, everyone, welcome again to the Make It Happen with Chamara interview series. This is episode 11. And what the purpose of this session is really about is to offer views, strategies, and stories to encourage and inspire women to really do better, tap into their inner being, embrace who they are, dream bigger, dig deeper, and to be inspired by the wonderful ladies that come on and their stories. And my name is Chamara Hollingsworth. I am the owner of Vision to Reality International, and what I focus on is helping women to take their business from vision to reality by taking bold, decisive actions. And today I have with me Krystle Howell. And I decided today that I wouldn't do the bio for Krystle again because we would have done it for the first interview. So I thought it would have, been a bit redundant. But I had the opportunity to meet Krystle years and years ago, actually at BCC, right? And because Krystle was so peeny, I always used to wonder who's this little girl, right? That was just walking around the area. I said, who's this little girl? This is somebody's little sister or something. I did not realize that Krystle was my age. Then I also had the opportunity to dance with her
Dance theater.
at Barbados Dance Theater, and I got to know her better throughout the years. And she's a really good person to know. in terms of her personality, and she's a very loving and kind spirit. And I thought it would be good to invite her here to talk about some of what she does because she's also a very intelligent person as well, right? As usual, before we get started, I want to do a game, but obviously because I would have done certain games with you before, I am going to do it a little different, right? So I want you to imagine that you have won like $5 million, right? Off the top of your head, tell me about 5 things that you would do with the money.
Runway. I kid. $5 million for sure. I'm not going to pretend. I would definitely clear my mortgage first, and I would set up an investment account because I want to make sure that I won't be one of those persons that wins money and then it's blown in the
Mhm,
first however long. But
mhm,
I would then use the funds that I would be earning from that money to help finance some of the charities that I am involved with, because I think there's so many causes and it's hard. I have found one and stuck to one, but it's hard when you see other causes that pull at your heart that you only have so much money when
mhm, mhm,
it is
mhm.
done. But if I was able to have money sitting on an investment account that I could then use the money that I earn from my salaries and other opportunities to then focus on all the charities that I really have a heart for. That would be my third thing. And making sure that I take care of my mom and sister so that they are secure.
Mhm.
And let me think, because that's as far as I've ever thought when it comes to if I had to win some kind of money. But yes, I would definitely travel a lot more as well, because I think limiting yourself to just our 2x4 experience
Mhm.
is a disservice. We are on a globe that is humongous and we've only seen a tiny speck of it, and travel helps to open you up to so many other ways of thinking, being, and existing. So that would
Mhm.
definitely be my fifth thing.
Okay, thank you. So she's going to clear that. See, I think it was very interesting that I asked you this question, because I think other people in general, the answers would be like completely different.
Nicole getting that yacht, so she would be
All right.
one that would go broke. You hear me?
There
She
we
made
go.
it all the money, and then she go broke trying to maintain that yacht.
So it's interesting seeing your answers. First things clear off the debt and then invest. Anything can happen from there, you know?
Pretty much.
So it makes sense. Make the money work for you.
Correct.
Exactly. Okay. So okay. So what I would like for you to do today is to tell me a bit about crystal creation and what it really is about.
Well, Krystle creation is a very loose business that I have, and I mean loose in the sense that I have only recently tried to register the business name, but because of COVID, they got little stick ups and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get it done before COVID really came down hard, but you know how things go.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I never actually saw it as a business originally because it's so therapeutic for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do pieces, especially majority of the ones that I put up, I feel as though, and I'm sure every artist thinks this as well, that you put your heart and your soul into something, and it's difficult to then even say, I'm going to sell it. But the opportunity I saw to help kind of soften it a bit, most of the persons that would have purchased a piece from me would have, instead of giving funds per se, they would more so donate to a charity of their choice. And that has helped a lot to be able to give back in that way through the art that I've created, and to still make sure that if the case ever came where I wanted to go into being a full-time artist, that transitioning in terms of charging would not be difficult because people are already accustomed to paying for the artwork. So I already have an idea as to what my market would be and what my customers would be like. and what they're interested in, because it's not that they're just getting a free piece and that's the way they took it. They actually like the art enough to spend this kind of money on it. So it's definitely the side of me that I enjoy the most, even though sometimes I don't get to spend the kind of time on it that I would like. But it is the most therapeutic side of my life for sure.
Nice. Okay, so one of the things you mentioned was about using the art not only to be able to in indirectly contribute to charity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you also mentioned kind of being able to test your market and see what was available to you out there.
Yeah.
I think that kind of touches on some of the challenges people have, or not necessarily touches on a challenge, but it made me start to think about some of the challenges that persons in the entertainment or creative industries face. What kind of challenges have you experienced from that side?
I 100% understand how the creative industry feels, and I put myself at the bottom where that is concerned, because I know of Bajan artists that have put serious education into it in terms of going through BCC, university, everything else, whereas I am from the school of YouTube, to be very blunt.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved to draw, but I knew I needed to develop some of my skills and to go to BCC full time, because I'm a full time auditor. It would not have been feasible, especially with everything else that I'm doing. But I found that over the years, the education, the quality of free education out there for artists is mind blowing. The things that people will show you in terms of technique, from as simple as how to hold a paintbrush, the how to mix your paints, what to put in them to make sure they last, what quality of paper, canvas, everything, it is out there. So I may not have had the time for structured learning, but
Mm-hmm.
being able to get into this has helped. But for those who have put the time and the money into paying for their education, they've really had to fall on their clientele and the brand that they've built,
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen some that are still continuing to thrive because of the reputation they have. And bearing in mind, art usually isn't necessarily, we have these things in accounts where you say sometimes either elastic or inelastic, which basically means regardless of what's going on around you, people are going to buy it or they're not going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to art, art is one of those kind of tricky things, because it's not a need. And more often not, the persons who want it have the disposable income to be able to afford to purchase art. So it's not a case where if persons' disposable income start to drop, the first thing they're going to think, I'm going to cut out art, because the persons whose disposable income are affected in that way may not even necessarily have been buying art to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So for some persons, and this is not true for everyone, but I've seen for some persons, regardless of how the pandemic has played out, they've still been able to maintain an income, because their art was a little bit inelastic, which basically means it didn't matter what was going on around the persons or the clientele that they had could still afford to purchase this art. Whereas there were other artists who, when you hear the conversations they had, their income has dried up completely because of the pandemic and everything that has happened, especially the ones that are into the performing arts, where persons are not willing to pay to see them perform online, or persons are not willing to have alternatives that were offered as things they'd say that they pay for. And we're even seeing this with huge names and international artists, far less to persons who are not as popular. So it has been very difficult, but I've seen some of them pivot. Even a really good example would be Mahalia, where she would have launched her book and be able to see some success there as well, and use the grant that she would have been able to achieve to be able to propel that dream forward. And we also saw Gibbsy, where he would have also used his grant money to be able to create a music video for his song and his artistry. So persons have had to reinvent themselves, and artists are no different.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, it was still a medium that, regardless of the pandemic, I could still make money off of. The unfortunate part for it was it is something that requires me. I can't farm it. Oh, I can't I can't train some person to do
Yeah.
art in the way that I would do it, and then they take it up.
Mm-hmm.
So because then you have longer hours at work because you're trying to make up for the fact that, you know, business is taking a hit because of the pandemic, so they're expecting more of you. And then since the first video that we did, I've actually started also doing part-time lecturing at UE as well. And I've also started another business, which I will get into when it gets a little bit more off the ground. But these are things that take your time, which means that you're not able to dedicate as much as you would to the thing you love the most. So it has been a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
but you figure it out. And hopefully I am trying to make sure that in 2021 I do definitely dedicate more time to the art, because I know the persons that have purchased it love it as much as I do.
Nice. Okay, so when you talk about some of the differences in when you were talking about elasticity versus inelasticity, um, and you were talking about some people, there's been inelastic, meaning that there was no change, they were still being able to sell their goods and so on, versus those who were not. Do you think that mindset has anything to do with it? Like, for instance, I see when you use Mahalia and Gibbsy as examples, they did what they did. They did things that allowed for them to stay relevant even in this time.
Yeah.
Um, so do you think mindset really has a big or a significant role in why some persons would have still made money versus those who might have lost out big time?
I want to be very careful in answering this because I don't want people to feel as though you do not understand that these are very difficult times, and that even with the best mindset, you can still not make money. So
Mm-hmm.
I want that to be very clear. However, I think some of the, which was surprising for the creatives, literally because of the name creatives, I expected them to be able to pivot a bit more than the rest of us. I straddling two two mindsets, but I expected the creatives to be the ones to be able to better pivot than those who are more, say, business minded or in a routine career,
Mm-hmm.
because their minds tend to be more open to other possibilities, whereas persons in a 9 to 5 tend to want to stay in that 9 to 5. But some of the persons I've been advising who've lost their jobs, we've been able to sit down and come up with things that they would have never done before the pandemic came. And I'll use one lady as an example. She, very mature lady, working in her last job for over 20 years in the accounts department. So you can already imagine when she lost her job in the hotel industry, how she would have felt. Like at her age, she felt as though, what is it that I could possibly do at this age to make money? Who's going to hire me back? And all that kind of, those fears. But we were able to sit down and pivot her entire situation. Instead of her sitting down waiting for her to get back her job, she came with a very open and willing mindset to try something completely outside of her comfort zone. And she was so grateful to be able to have that opportunity and to be able to dive into it. Whereas for a lot of creatives, I'm seeing them trying to push what they were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't going to be as simple as that in all cases. Just transitioning to just doing virtual concerts, that may work for a few very big name artists who are going to find advertisers who are going to be willing to pay for them to do these things. And yes, you can make some money from online dance classes and all these kind of things. I'm not saying you can't, but when you're thinking of it long term and in terms of sustainable income, that is where I expected the creatives in this time frame to have come up with something that would have been a bit more sustainable, that the market would want, because the reality is your product is dictated by whether the market wants it or not, by the demand. Do people want virtual concerts? Do people want to pay for these things? And the reality is, especially when there's so many persons offering them for free, including CBC, and you're having a blast, why then would people want to go and pay for it? So instead of being upset with persons not wanting a product, the same way you would not, if you don't want insurance, I don't get upset if you don't want insurance. I move on. I try to find another product that you would like. I think that's what has to happen, especially now that today is actually, for me, I remember this day last year, because this day last year is when they announced the first COVID case in Barbados. Because they came home right away and started working from home. This is a year. What have we as creators been doing to offer a product that will still embody our skills inventory, but pivot it in a way that the market would want to pay for it? And I think that's probably what's been missing for some creatives since this pandemic would have happened.
Do you think that your role as an auditor and in accounting has shifted or made a difference in the way you view business, or you view your creative business, as opposed to others who have creative businesses but not the background that you have?
I definitely can't discount it, because as we even discussed on the last live, getting into business is way more than just being good at something, which is I've always found it unfortunate that certain basic business skills are not taught to all persons, regardless of whatever field they get into. So artists struggle then with marketing, or being able to understand their target audiences, because this is a skill that needs to be taught. It's not even a skill that's taught to auditors either. It's just that because of the role and the nature of my job and the kind of person I am, when I go to a company, even when it was at Ernst & Young, and I will go to a business, I'm not just sticking up in the finance department. I go in and malicious in every department to understand how this business works as a whole, because the business is much more than the finance department. It's much more than the product that they're selling. It's relationships, it's marketing, it is customer service, it is so much. So because I'm a brilliant or talented artist, does not mean I'll even sell a single painting. And then there's a person who might be out there. I see videos of people drinking paint and vomiting it onto a canvas and making thousands of dollars. So it's literally sometimes not even about talent. It is about how you can understand what people want and market it to them in a way that they're willing to pay for it. Yes, I was grossed out when I saw it as well too. But the reality is, she's living a better life than me and you.
You know, scar me for life. Okay. You mentioned the fact that, like, a lot of people don't know some of the not issues. Let me not use the wrong word. I think a lot of people assume that because somebody's creative, automatically they understand the concept of marketing, right?
Yeah, I guess. It's a different skill set altogether.
I know, right? So that's why I was thinking that the people make a lot of assumptions. It's just like, I remember when I went to UV, I was good at math. And people assume that because I was good at math, automatically I would be good at accounts.
Two different skill sets.
Completely. People just hear numbers, and they think,
yeah,
everything is
like,
all fine and dandy.
I'm an accountant that I'm good at math. I was when it was at school, but now I use a calculator to multiply 7 by 8. It's terrible. Terrible.
Right? So do you think there are what ways, great question. How would you suggest that some of the creators go out and build the necessary sets that they need to run their creative business?
The first thing is to understand that it's not an overnight process. Most people aren't going to pick it up like that. And you have to give yourself time to also fail, because when you're branching off into anything new, which is the
Mm-hmm.
scary thing, I think, for Barbadians, and then may even venture to say Caribbean people as a whole, we're very scared to try something that wasn't done before.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it was done before, if it wasn't done by somebody here, like if I don't know somebody personally that has done this before, I am very scared to try it. And that's the mindset that a lot of us have. We have this fear. And then when we fail, the persons around us are like, I tell you, you shouldn't to go and get into that, or whatever the case may be. Nobody here never get that, do what you thought you could get to. That mentality is so damaging, because you can't, if a baby never tried walking for the first time, we'd still be crawling, we'd still be laying on our backs. But they dared to try something that they failed at many, many times, and then eventually got to the place of walking. When did we lose that yearning to be more than what we are right now?
I think
When
it's
did we get
really,
that fear of failure? It is culture.
yeah, it's how we were socialized coming up. You know, just the
Exactly.
way our parents and teachers and people around us spoke to us about certain things. It unfortunately, in a lot of ways, we have a fear building culture,
Yes.
um, and that's why a lot of people seem to be so stuck,
And
right?
if we don't succeed on the first try, we're forever branded with our failure.
Hmm.
So then we shoot ourselves in the foot, because what we're doing right now isn't working anymore, but we cling on to it for dear life, because we know if we try something new and fail, society
Hmm.
will crucify us. And I'm
This
not
is,
saying to go there and just going with wild abandon to every single new idea that you hear. It still
mm-mm.
takes careful planning and consulting. So even when I get into something new, yes, I may not know anyone here that has done it, but there must be somebody in this world that has done it already. There may be some school that is teaching it. There may be some YouTube video with persons who have been able to show that they've successfully done it. And not everything on YouTube is necessarily, there are persons who are accredited on YouTube that can give you legitimate advice on how to venture into something that you're trying for the first time.
Mhm.
And you'll be able to monetize that. I know dancers who are monetizing their online classes. It is possible, but we definitely need to step out of that comfort zone
Mhm.
and take some risks, I would say some calculated risks.
I agree. Marlo is saying it's true, but creatives aren't necessarily business minded, not all of them, which is true.
I don't know
Um,
many creators that are business minded, to be quite honest, because that Venn diagram never really intersected. If you went into the art classes at school, they ain't teaching you the business. They ain't teaching you how to balance books and how to get credit cards and how to invest the money that you make from your artwork, because you're just expected to make money for your artwork and blow it,
but
apparently.
I think even culturally, how people saw art, like when I was younger, it's like if you wanted to go into the arts, well, that's not an area of business to go into. You know, you ain't gonna make no money from that. You need to go and study something else. You know, so those are things that you need to consider as well. That's probably why a lot of like they never thought to mesh those two together because they never saw the creative industries or the creative arts as things that could be possible, profitable industries, even though it was
And then the
happening out there.
reality
You
And then the
know,
reality is that I find for creatives, where are the mentors that can show you that this life is a profitable life? Because it's one thing to say, okay, you're going to take a chance, but mentorship is very important as well too. And for some, I have unfortunately heard that there's some creatives where their mentors are the persons they look up to, don't necessarily show them how they can make a living out of this skill set that they have, or sharing of information, even in something as simple as how to price what services they're offering, is a humongous secret. And they have to go around in roundabout ways. They can't directly go and ask someone, like, how much do you charge for a gig? They have to go in roundabout ways to find out something that you can still find out anyhow. So at least showing that you have this person's interest at heart and not just seeing them as competition that's going to take away from your ability to make money, which is really heart of it, really is. But some person that you can mentor to take over and show how they can get things done. Even when you look at 94.7, I remember when I was requesting particular music, and DJ would have said, well, you won't be able to get that song because it's not in the format that can be played for radio. And I'm here like, it's a format that you have to do for radio, and it's more expensive. And then you have a song out there that's an amazing song, but it can't get any radio play because persons haven't been able to afford or budget for their music to be converted into a format that can be played on the radio for persons to be aware that it exists. We are able to properly sometimes monetize the music that we do because there are limits. I'm glad Shannon's actually on this call because there are so few options. Even the same business I'm sure I was talking about, when I was looking at the persons who are overseas and seeing the rows and rows and rows of payment options that they have to receive money versus us that are limited to two, maybe, I think Shannon mentioned the third one on his Facebook, but I'm not recalling it right now. But 2 or 3 options to receive money in Barbados versus countries that have millions of options to be able to. When Mo's song blew up because Rihanna hailed him more on YouTube, and he had so many persons coming on, he should have been able to monetize that following so that he could make money from that opportunity. You don't get opportunities like that every day.
Exactly. I agree because even there are a lot of things that are not available to us here that really keep us, no, I don't want to say keep us stuck. You have to work extra hard to find a way around it.
Yes, you do.
You know, like even for me, when I'm looking for particular platforms that I want to use to do programs or courses on, I always have to look for something that uses PayPal, right?
Yes.
And then what I realized, even the other day, I was doing something with a gentleman from overseas, a job for a gentleman from overseas. Oh, okay, sorry. And okay, but a gentleman from overseas, and I asked him if he used PayPal, and he was like, "No, I don't trust PayPal. I'm not using that." And just like that, no business for me, you know. And so it was like, really, no, I did not even know about Payoneer and Transfer Away. So thank you,
That's
Shannon,
why
for
I'm
that.
glad that Shannon's on. That's why I'm glad Shannon's on this call, because when I saw him, I wondered how many creatives or even business persons are aware of all these options, because he doesn't even have PayPal in that list. But and I know he knows about PayPal. This is just to make it clear. But he has Payoneer, TransferWise, and Stripe as 3 additional options to PayPal that you can use if you want to earn money from overseas. But then even when you do that, just knowing about the options isn't enough. Knowing how to add those accounts, what kind of account that you're going to have, what kind of do you need so that you can receive money, because even for PayPal, you're going to need a Visa debit if you want to receive money. Do you know that they're going to hold your money in an escrow account for about 1, 2, maybe even 3 months until you are recognized as a trustworthy seller? Like things, and that is just a little piece.
Even as a trustworthy one, they hold it for 30 days, depending on where it's coming from. If it comes from a site that already does a holding, then they charge a fee to just transfer it over to the bank account. You know, and then sometimes people wonder why our prices might be a little higher online, but then when you start to look at all the different things that you have to do just to get that money, by the time you get any money, money's small. You know,
small. So So even there was this product that some person wanted to buy, and when you put in the US, if you put in the US address, the shipping for that item was $2.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you put in a Barbados address, the shipping went up to $45 US. And it's things like that that makes it difficult then for persons when they say they've already spent money trying to get this business launched, and then they hit blocks like that. Then they feel as though they've wasted a lot of their money on an opportunity that they can't take further because they were not aware of all the things that they needed to know before they got involved in this opportunity. So it's not even that they may not have been able to get involved, but if they had all of the knowledge about what they were getting themselves into, they may have said, okay, I need to save a little bit more, or I might need to get a loan so that I can get all of these things done and start making back some money to pay for all of these things that I have had to spend money on. It's just a matter of having that knowledge, which comes from mentorship, which comes from all of these things, which is why I said I don't think that certain aspects of business should be limited to just persons who went to school and decided to do business.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, especially creatives, should know these things so that right now where we've had lockdowns, we've had all of these kind of things, limited activities that have impacted creatives the most because they're always at the bottom of the list whenever a reopening happens. Mm-hmm. If there's a creative that wanted to say go and do their services online and they found persons who are willing to pay because they have a large following, let's say like for instance Nandi. Mm-hmm. Is Nandi aware about all of those options to be able to receive money for her online classes when she is putting these things out there? Do you have relationships with advertisers, or is that what you're relying on to be able to make money? Being limited in the ways in which you can make money is hitting creatives the hardest because they're the ones that need to find overseas opportunities more than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. It is true.
Lee Beijing is saying that he had a payment that came in from Africa that took over 30 days to process. Now, again, when you're talking about cash flow, which is another business term, does your business have enough cash flow that it can wait 30 days or more for that money to come in for a product that you've already spent money on because you've already had to purchase the product? You've already had to pay the taxes. You've already had to do everything else. If you had to purchase a website, if you had to pay for advertising, if you had to pay Kaipo to register the business, all these expenses you've already incurred and you have to wait 30 days to get the money. Can your
PayPal
sustain that? Yeah, PayPal, that is standard that they pay.
And then on top of that, they deduct in the beginning once the money comes on, and they deduct just to transfer it over to the account.
Yes.
So just deductions all around.
Yep.
So I think to me that even kind of ties into pricing, because do people know all of these things that come out of their money when they price something? Like, for instance, I started doing a bit of virtual assistance last year, and I was like, okay, let me go and I can start with the standard $10 US rate. Listen, right? By the time the place that I used to cut that 20%, and then I had to, say, I get $3 for doing a job for $10 an hour. No, it can't work. So I had to, raise up the prices, so you have to really know what is involved so that you can price accordingly. That's something very important, and that's something that a lot of people don't look at. You just say, oh, this sounds like a good price. Blah.
Yes. When costing has to come into play, which again is another thing that's taught for business students. Mm-hmm. But doesn't everybody sell something? Doesn't your doctor sell you a service? Doesn't your mechanic sell you a service? Everybody sells a service or a product? So how is it then that everybody doesn't understand or isn't taught how to price that product, how to understand all the costs that go into this product and not just the direct costs? So we know, obviously, if you're selling clothes and you bought a shirt for $10, we know that's an obvious cost. how much it costs to ship down here. Again, those are obvious costs. But are you costing then the amount of gas that it took for you to go and collect the item if you had to go and collect it? Are you charging for your electricity if you had to use electricity to get this converted into something that's going to be sold? Are we charging for every single thing that goes into that product, the space that you are using to host this product? Because unless you're doing something online, if you're making a product, you have to be making it or hosting it somewhere. There's a cost to that as well too, especially if you're paying rent or mortgage.
Yeah, people don't even remember to charge for their own labor, or they don't even consider their labor when pricing a product in itself. So those are some of the things that people have challenges with. Lee Division is saying, but like you say, US PayPal accounts don't have these issues. And Shannon is saying that Pioneer is awesome because they send you a MasterCard, which may take a month or two to get there from overseas, but you can use to withdraw from the online account, subject to credit card fees. Okay, that's very good to know.
Shannon is a wealth of tech knowledge.
I know. So it's a way to get the MasterCard, but once you get it, it's convenient for withdrawing. And Needy Beijing. So I want to touch on Shannon's point, right? Needy Beijing is also saying is like these financial institutions are discriminative based on geographical location they are. And we think, Shannon thinks that we need more education on how to price in a how to price with a healthy profit margin. So I'm going back to this whole thing about having the MasterCard, right? So it's one thing to have that MasterCard in place, but then people need to know how to manage the accounts for their business, because when you got a credit card, it's so easy to swipe, right? How are you managing that money? That's something that's really important so that your business can be sustainable, you know? And how do you manage that money in a way that, yes, once you start to make this money, yes, you can pay yourself X amount so you can take out your salary but still grow your business as well. What a lot of people, including myself, have had challenges with is that the cash flow is not as great as you would like it to be. Then all the money gets spent on whatever you need it to be spent on, but then you're not able to build the business in a way that you want to build it because you're not making the cash flow as consistently as you would ideally like. So then these are some things that I believe not only creatives but any entrepreneur need to have a better understanding of. So that's pricing in itself. But then another thing I find a lot of people have challenges with is sales. I think it's very interesting. Let me see if she's still here, because somebody that was big in marketing had just joined. I think she but at the end of the day, in terms of sales, do we know how to sell? Sometimes selling really comes back to basic communication. And I realize that unfortunately, a lot of us don't even know how to communicate well.
Again, a whole separate skill set as well too, which is why I tell when people ask me why I am not in business myself, like deep into it, all of these are the reasons. It's a lot of work. It's one thing to help some person with their business and to give them advice and everything else, but the doing of it is very exhausting, because, especially if you're a one-man show, everything is at you and you can't let it slip. So you can't let your marketing slip. You can't let your customer service slip. You can't let your budget and finances slip. You can't not pay your taxes. You can't, and you still, we didn't even get to the product yet. We didn't get to the product or the service yet, and there's so many things you have to think about, especially if you want the business to grow. And once the business starts to grow, that's where you really start to feel that you need 8 or 10 pairs of arms. And marketing is something that's going to be the lifeblood of your business, but just as easily as it's the lifeblood, if your customer sales and after sales support isn't good and you start to get a reputation for giving poor after sales service, you can kill your business just as quickly, because when people start to hear that once you get the sale, No, you ain't checking for people anymore. If something goes wrong with the product, you don't help out. That is going to tarnish your reputation, and especially with business, it's hard to get it back, especially when they have other options.
Hmm. Even things like you talk about this and I start thinking processes and so on. But
Mhm.
then even with the processes, let's say for instance you get that sale, but now you as a one person start getting let's say your threshold is 10
Mhm.
for you to be able to function in terms of preparation, doing the actual sale and doing the after sales properly. For until you get that 11th or 12th person, everything starts to unwind at the seams because no, you can't handle these two extra people, but you want more money coming
Yeah.
in to grow the business. But then what have you been putting in place in order to grow the business um, as a part of that process? At which point do you now need to decide, even if you're going to bring in somebody part-time or outsource somebody for certain things, what is the magic number for you to say it's time for me to get somebody else? And all of this comes back down to your pricing, you know?
Yep.
So a lot of people don't see how interlinked all the different parts of the business are.
And this is not
You
to
know?
discourage persons from getting into business, because when it's successful, it can be very rewarding. But I
Mhm.
don't want persons going with the rose-colored glasses about get rich quick schemes and all this kind of thing, and to understand it's a process and it's not a straight line. Business goes like this. So when you have your ups and downs, you have to make sure when you have your ups that you're not flying so high and start feeling yourself to the point where you start spending wildly and not properly taking care of the business. Because then when you have those downs, and I'll use taxi men because I have relationships with taxi men in the sense because it's a seasonal business.
Mhm.
From October to April, taxi men are flying high, they're buying drinks and everything else. And then from May to September, it's dry. And it's like every year, it's not a surprise that your business is seasonal. How are you not putting down for a rainy day when
I
you
think
know that May is going to come out and you're going to be dry? It's not a surprise anymore. And there are persons who just, it is almost, as you said, when they get a credit card, it's like they go wild with the money. When they start to see the sales coming in, they start to
mhm,
grab at every single one without realizing that you're making commitments that you have to fulfill. And there is a limit in terms of the amount of time that you can spend delivering a service. There are only 24 hours in a day. How many things can you produce within those 24 hours without burning the candle at both ends, without producing an inferior product? And
mhm.
that is where you definitely have to make sure you cut off. When you get to the point where you know within yourself that you are not giving of your best anymore, and you're putting your reputation on the line trying to grab at all the additional money, it may be time to take a step back,
Mhm.
because you don't want to sacrifice the quality that you have been giving out to give persons a substandard product. And when it comes to even bringing some person else to help, do you have the time to mentor that person? Because that is an investment as well. We have to not see persons as an expense, but as an investment. Because when you take the time to mentor that person well, they can take some of the workload off of you. But initially, you're going to have to invest the time to train them properly and to also vet them to make sure that you have some person who's willing to be coachable and teachable, that they're not going to take the information you give them and do something else when they're on their own and take shortcuts. Because that's also possible. You can do all the work in terms of training them well, and then this person decides they're going to do their own thing because they don't see the value in what you have been telling them, and put you into trouble. So again, these are things persons don't get to learn, and then they go and hire some person and they're not aware of all of these things that come along with it, and the business starts to struggle or it starts to get a bad reputation. You put too many years, months, hours, however long into this, to then have it short circuited because of these kind of things. Which is why I wish that persons who are outside of the finance field didn't see these things as just something for the finance people. because you're not always going to be in a position where you can just hire a business person. And the reality is that not every business person out there you may gel with as well too. So you, even if yes you get a professional, there's still certain things you should understand so that you can have an input when you're having these discussions with your finance person, that you're not there sitting down in the dark just doing whatever it is that they tell you to do, because no one knows your business better than you do.
What I found interesting about what you said, especially when you were talking about being able to mentor someone, I think sometimes people miss a step even when they get to that point. And that step is, once you start your business, do you know the thank you. Do you know the processes that it takes to make your business work? Because you can't mentor somebody if you don't know what it is that you need to tell them. You have to know all of the steps to get from point A to point B, so that you can teach somebody the steps to get from point A to point
Yes.
B, right? And that's something that a lot of people completely miss in their businesses. I actually made that mistake when I was first starting business. I decided, look, I can get two people to come and help me. And I got these girls, and when they come now, I did not have a clue. I was like, okay, so do this. And then it was like, oh, no, know that they're doing this, I really don't have anything to do. Let me see what I can find. Like I did not have a plan in place
Because you did not
because
have
I
the
did not
business
know
plan in place, you didn't understand the strategy, where it is that you, because the
exactly.
whole point of you giving them those things and to step back is so that you can focus on growing the business so that it has money to pay these people.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of
And
persons
then
who get caught to in terms of even when they delegate, still wanting to be micromanaging everything,
mhm,
which takes them away from the entire point of being the one in charge. You're supposed to be growing the business. You
yeah.
have to let go. If you're the one who's accustomed baking cakes and you've taught someone how to, you've mentored them, you've trained them, and they're getting it done well, you have to let that go so that you can go out there and figure out how are you going to grow this business so that you have work for everybody to do, and so the business can pay people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things you're going to have to step up and do. And the e-myth is, we actually discussed that in our last leg as
Last
well.
one, yeah.
There's an audio version that's free, available online, and you have that as highly recommended reading, because it really brings to home all the things that you need to think about when you're getting into business.
Mm-hmm.
And it is an invaluable lesson for anyone, regardless of what business model you are getting into, things that you need to start thinking about. And even if you're in business already, it can help you to identify some of the mistakes you may have been making, because you don't want to keep making those mistakes. You want to be able to learn and grow, but sometimes knowing what direction should I go in to figure out how I get my business to the next step is usually the part that's missing for a lot of people. And then dismissing, oh, I'm not a business person, so it makes no sense to be reading that book. No. If you are selling a product or a service, regardless of whether you're in the arts or any other field, you are a business person. Period.
I think to me it comes back down to, remember I was asking you about mindset earlier too. You know,
Yeah.
how many people start their businesses, and once you ask them, what is it that you do? Oh, I just do a little thing. Or,
Yeah.
you know, you have a business. What does your business do? How is your business helping people? What are you bringing to the
I
table?
I'm not completely upset with people. It's just I'm hoping that more and more we can
Mm-hmm.
change that mindset so that people don't see business as just for business people. If I can change that mindset, and I know there are other persons out there who are trying to change that mindset, but unfortunately, finance tends to draw finance people. And it's already almost as though you're preaching to the choir. They already know. So even when I do a live, because people know me as a finance person, I'm going to see a lot of finance people come onto the live, and they already understand for the most part what I am telling them. And these are, as much as I appreciate the love and the support, I want to have persons who are aware of this information that need it to get their businesses to grow, to also realize how much they need to be aware of this information. Because if businesses in Barbados don't thrive, we are not going to get the kind of economic growth that we really need to. If people don't understand the issues that affect their industry, even in terms of something as simple as that whole PayPal issue and all those other things. The reason why sometimes we get things holding our country is looked on so harshly is because of sometimes some of the blacklisting that we are going through. And we're upset with these companies for taking a particular stance without understanding that some of the decisions that are made at the macro level, the higher up level, that's above all of our pay grades, have an impact on our pockets. Mm-hmm. So maybe PayPal may not hold our accounts in 30 days if we were a bright and shining country that everybody wants to do business with. Maybe. But the reality is, because we don't even know that that is the reason why we are being impacted, we don't know to lobby for certain things, to ask our government to change certain things so that we will be able to have better business experiences.
Sometimes I wonder, right? And I know this might not be the right place to say, but sometimes I believe that a lot of it is purposely done because they don't, it's almost like they don't want to see us succeed. Right? But that's just how I see it. Shannon is saying I hate reading, and it's a good book, and if I can read it, I really good book. And I enjoyed reading it as well as listening to it, and I try to listen to it as often as possible just to remind me. So for everybody who might have missed, we were talking about the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. A really good book for any person in business or any person who wants to get into business or any person who sells anything to just read, even if you want to understand how some businesses work. Shannon says that we need to export. Local production costs are stifling and we should form international relationships whenever possible, even if it's subcontracting for an overseas firm.
And you see all of that work we have to do to be able to build international relationships. We should not have to be jumping through all those hoops. I see people overseas start things so easily and they do not have a lot of the barriers that we have to face. And it's so frustrating. And if you're not a person who's willing to fight, then I can understand why so many people just limit themselves to a local market. But the reality is we only have 280,000 persons, and the product that you are selling, you can only scale it to so much if you are looking to sell this product locally. So even how many persons understand how to ship their products overseas if they have a physical product? How many persons understand how they can market their services overseas? I have persons that I've recommended who do personal training, and I've been trying to push them to get overseas clients because they have a personal touch that really can't be replicated, or the people I interact with overseas see the results that I have and they would like to have those same results and be able to set them up overseas. And then the person doesn't even have a PayPal account or anything to be able to receive the funds from this person. They now have to go and try to figure that all out. And you don't want to limit yourselves because you don't have the options to be able to expand to overseas markets. You really, really don't. So I'm glad to see Shannon on and persons like Shane Jones and Jeremy Stephen who can add value in terms of helping to share this information or to get persons to be more aware in the creative industry as to the opportunities they may have available to make money and not just limiting themselves to the local market, which, as we can tell, we definitely know that the creative industry is going to be the last persons to get permission to be able to go and do anything again, which gives them the hardest hit.
I fully agree. Shannon is saying that the overseas relationships can lead to opening overseas bank accounts and access to the new market. And actually, it even opened up a lot more of those payment portals as well.
Yeah.
To be able to really get business and get some cash flow going. And I think that's actually another discussion for another time. I would have a lot of questions about that. You know, you have an overseas bank account, you have your money from your business getting there. How does that money get here? That's a question that I would want to ask.
Yeah, that's it over there. That would be my advice. Don't bring it back down here, please. Please leave it over there if you have a, because I know a lot of persons who've opened U.S. bank accounts overseas. Is pretty straightforward process. Once you have, you can just find out from them what information they need beforehand. And most persons, whenever they travel overseas, may use that as an opportunity to stop at a bank one time and open that account.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a difficult process, but in terms of bringing money back down here, you can get hit with some kind of fee or tax or whatever case it be. So that's why I say if you can leave it down there, if you have that flexibility or that flow, you can do that and see it as an investment opportunity, especially if you open an account that is interest earning as opposed to one that's like a checking account that doesn't earn anything.
I'm
But
tempted to
again,
ask if interest earning accounts still exist, but anyhow.
overseas, yes.
Okay.
This is supposed to be a creative discussion.
Yes, yes. Anyhow, we're talking about the business of being a creative
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Mhm. So it's still about creativity. But no, that I guess that's the reality because you are a creative in business and I think we need to be able to understand that you still have to know the business side of it, even when
Yeah.
you know you're creative, so that you can do the best you can. Like you talked
Mhm.
before about optimal, well, not before, like the last time you were talking about how as an auditor you need to be able, as an internal auditor specifically, you need to be able to ensure that our business is working at optimal performance.
Mhm.
And I think that's a standard that everybody should be working to. How can I get my business to work at optimal performance? But then to me, it comes back to what is it that I need to understand to be able to make my business work at an optimal performance? And I think that's a key that is missing for a lot of us is do we really understand what needs to happen in order to get my business from here to where it is that I want it to go? What are the steps that need to be taken? Who do I need to talk to? I think sometimes that's key because a lot of people don't know who to talk to, so they remain stuck.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned before with mentors and so on, you talk to somebody that you see as a mentor because you see them, you know, making it through. But that person is not necessarily teaching you what you need to know, you know? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not, yes, sometimes it is that they might be seeing you as competition, but sometimes it's that they just don't know how to teach it. You know, it's like I understand how to do it, but I don't understand how to explain this to you. You know, so those are things to consider. Um, you were about to say something, but Beijing Fam was actually saying the business part has to be working efficiently and profitably.
What I was also going to advise is not to always go to one source. That I find like there was this lady, she was into cooking, and she said she went to two persons to get advice, and they gave her terrible advice, and she was done with that. And I was like, you mean you only went to two persons? Like, God to go and do some stomping. Like, I even when I was looking to see what I should price my art, because in the beginning I didn't have a clue. I went to Pelican Village and I
Mhm.
looked because the prices are right there. So I looked to see what artwork was similar to my style and what those prices were. I made a note of them so that I could charge something similar because I'm starting off obviously blind. But I didn't only go to the Pelican Village. I went to all different galleries and stuff like
Mhm.
that, from the Queen right down to Lane Grove, all these places, because you want to be able to get an idea as well too as to where you can grow towards as well too. Finding
Yeah.
out what kind of fee they would charge if you wanted to showcase into the gallery, and even how many pieces you will want they would want you to have. And the reality is, because I know that my time is limited, people ask why I don't market or advertise. Sometimes I put a piece out and before I can, sometimes it goes very quickly. Sometimes it sticks with me. But I to date have not been able to get the required number of pieces that I would want to put in a gallery. And then the reality is that also shows me that if I really wanted to push this, I definitely would need to be able to dedicate more time because I need to be pushing way more pieces than I am doing now. So I would definitely have to make some decisions as to how far I would want to take this if I'm going to go into it full time, which is my ultimate dream, to be able to go into it full time and be able to cut out the other things that are taking all of the time away from me being able to develop enough pieces to put into a gallery. Then I know what I have to work towards. And when I get to that point where I can say, you know what, I can do this full time because I have my long-term plan and I'm putting it in place and the pieces are falling together, then I can go and I've done the homework to find out what I need to do to get to that level, which is what a lot of people need to do. They need to not just go to one source, one mentor, or even limit themselves to Barbados. I have overseas mentors that don't know that them is my mentor. I follow their advice and everything else.
Well, what I think is interesting as well is that even in situations where people place a mentor with you, what people try to do is to place a mentor that does the exact same thing that you do, but sometimes you could find somebody that is doing something completely different, and there's a whole lot that you can learn from that person, and then even inspire you to start to do things a little bit differently in your own business. And that's a consideration to be taken as well. Shannon is saying more of our business support organizations need to address these real issues. We shouldn't need to all be making the same mistakes and trying to figure it out. It's true.
Yeah. And
Okay.
even following off from your point, even in terms of marketing, you do not have to go to another artist's page to see how they are marketing their art only to understand how to market. You may go to some person who is selling cakes, and the way how their pictures are taken and their photos are put on their social media, you like that style and you want to do something similar for your artwork. And you got that inspiration from something that had nothing to do with art.
But it is art.
There you go. It's a understanding that marketing isn't limited to just one product or service, but marketing is something that can be applied to anything, which means then if you like a marketing strategy for some person who is doing ballet services, the way how they do their videos and how it makes you feel inspired and wants you to go and get your car cleaned, you can take that feeling and try to replicate it for your dance classes. You want this person to feel as though you must be in this dance class and this is the way for you to have the most fun online and everything else, so that they can engage in that experience even before they even purchase your service and already feel pumped and everything else. So it's to not just limit yourself to only looking for nuggets from your industry or to only learn from your industry. You learn from the persons who are excelling in the particular process that you are trying to master.
I agree. I hear, I know. I'm gonna leave that one. All right. So considering we've gone over time, we're now an hour and 8 minutes in, and it was a really good discussion again. And I feel like we need to do this again because we have really great discussions. But I want to take this opportunity once again to thank you very much for being a part of this session today. And I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who would have joined us tonight for being here and also making it interactive. I think we need to speak really and truly and see what we could do to make something that happens a bit more often, because these discussions are discussions that I think really need to be had and for people to get a lot of exposure to. So, anyhow, as we end the session, I'd like to invite each of you to follow Make It Happen with Chamara, as well as Krystle_Clear and Krystle_Creations, and creation with a K.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both with a K. Everything with a K. Krystle creates. Krystle is K. Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant clear because I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Right. So that's Krystle. Right. So follow those pages so that you can get to know a bit more about what we are doing and the things that we are looking to do. One of the things I saw Krystle was doing earlier this year, I don't know if she intends to do more of them, is that she had a nice little paint class for
Oh yes, yes.
children online. I don't know if you also do paint and sits or, as well, but I think those are great ideas for persons who might want to do that and still have the ability to do those things online as well.
That was
Um,
my first time doing the paint and sit online, and I was amazed at how engaged the children were. They loved it. They absolutely loved it, and I wasn't sure how it would work out virtually,
mhm,
but they had a blast. I love working with children with paint and sits are concerned. I've actually never done one with adults. All of the paint and sits I've done have been with children, but children love them.
mhm.
Absolutely love
My children had the opportunity to do one about 2 years ago, and they still have their things up in their bedrooms with
them.
their little signatures in the corner. It's very exciting to be able to do your own art, you know, and it exposes them to the possibilities that exist. That's how I truly believe it. Musings by J. Renee and Kathleen Prescott Hurley. Thank you all for joining. They're saying thank you, great information. Many thanks, fantastic interview. Thank you, ladies. And I invite everyone to enjoy the rest of your night, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye.
Bye.